What is up, YouTube? This is Danish Reef Tank, and today I'm going to help you guys out do your first water change if you've never did one before. Before you begin, this is going to be the first unit that you're going to need to buy. It's called the RODI unit. This is a bulkreefsupply.com unit. You can get one of these for $200. It is a 4-stage value plus, has all the different gadgets you need. It's very simple to use. You basically take the red line, run it to the power or to the water supply, take the blue line in the container that you plan on keeping the water, and then the black line is your waste line, so you throw that in the grass or wherever you'd like to water for the evening. What this does is basically gets you really clean water and basically dechlorinated water for your reef tank. You can use that water then for top offs because you don't want to top off with salt water, and you can also use it for mixing your salt water. Here's a close-up of the one I have, guys. As far as the PSI meter on the right side over there, I think the typical range that you're looking for is 45 to 75 psi. I hover right around 55, so good to go there. If you're not getting enough pressure, not enough water pressure, they do have things called boosters that you can get to get that pressure in the optimal range so it does work properly. But you're definitely going to want to need to get one of these if you're starting a reef tank. Otherwise, using tap water, you don't know what kind of materials and organics are in that water, and then also just definitely not ideal at all for top offs. Tap water will get the job done, but may also cause you a lot of issues in the long run. Next, you need to get a TDS meter. This is the HM Digital. If you just type in TDS on bulk reef supply, this exact one will actually pop off. It's a really cheap unit, $24.99. Works great though. Basically does two things: checks the TDS and also checks the temperature. When you make your water, you're going to want your TDS as low as possible. The goal is 0 or 0.1. Mine usually stays a little bit dirty just because I don't clean my containers as much as I should. On this check right here, which you'll see in a second, I'm going to be hovering at about 4. So basically turn it on, stick it in the tank. Good check there is shake it up a little bit, make sure there's no dirt or dust on your unit. Whenever you feel comfortable, press the hold button, pull it out. Having a little difficult there, and it will give you a reading. Like I said, mine is not perfect but still pretty good. 4 is very, very low. When I test my tap water just coming straight out my sink, it's usually in the 100. So not the cleanest, a lot of materials and stuff like that, but a really great unit to get. How to actually mix your salt water. My salt of choice is Red Sea Coral Pro Salt. I think it's a great buy. I think the chemical components and everything makes a perfect saltwater blend for a really heavily dominant reef coral tank. There's some other salts that if you're only doing fish would be great for, but I think Red Sea has really mastered that, and really suggest checking them out. What you're going to need is 2 pumps, or 1 pump if you're using 1 jug. If you do use 2, it does mix it a little bit better. Make sure your wire, you do have a drip leak just in case if any water goes there. And then also make sure you put a towel up under your jugs, because I promise you, you might not think you're going to do it, but you're eventually going to spill that salt mixture, and it's going to go everywhere, and with the towel it's much quicker to clean up. So go ahead and be a little proactive there. So have a funnel ready and a half cup there. Here's the trick, guys. Don't level out the cup. You can see what I'm doing here. I'm just making a good modest scoop. And you want to do this 5 times for 5 gallons. So a half scoop, a modest half scoop. So like I said, don't level it off perfectly or anything like that. Otherwise, it's not going to be perfect. Your goal is for your salinity to be at 1.026. That is your goal. That is your target. If you do that where you don't level off these scoops perfectly, you should be spot on perfect, guys, as long as you got exactly 5 gallons. Make sure you use a jug that you have already pre-measured out so you know how much water's in there. But basically a half cup for each gallon. Let it mix in there. At minimum, I mix it for 2 hours. And what I will always do about that 1 hour mark, I'll actually walk by, move the pump in a different location, just in case if any salt's still on the bottom, it will have a chance to recirculate and basically dissolve in the material. And then another really great tip, so you don't shock your system when you go to pour your salt water in there, is if it's a cold month, or if your house is really cold, or if it's winter, you're going to want to put a heater in there, guys. You're going to want to go ahead and acclimate basically your new water to the same temperature as your regular water. Otherwise, when you pour 5 gallons, especially in nanos, you are going to shock that system with a temperature change and could potentially kill some corals and fish if you aren't very careful with doing that. So be mindful of that. House is cold, weather's cold. Make sure you get a heater, get that temperature to where you need it to be to match your reef system already. And then you're going to need to get a refractometer, however you pronounce that, to check your water. And I will do a how-to video on that later, trying to figure out what the best method when actually teaching you guys, helping you guys out, showing you how I used one of those to make sure your salinity is perfect. You can get the ones that basically are hanging in the water that you fill up. Not the best thing in the world. They're hydrometers, I believe is what they pronounce them as. Not the best. I'd really advise just go ahead and get a refractometer. You'll much more appreciate it. Usually you can get them on deals for about $30–40 if you watch the sales, especially on Black Friday, guys. But let's move on to actually how you mix your salt water. And yes, on that right jug I did put 6 scoops in there, and I had to adjust that later with more roadie water. But let's move on to actually how you change the water in your reef tank. Let's start out with actually preparation on what you need here. Always have a few towels on hand. Immediately have a towel beneath where you actually are going to be pouring. I have actually a few behind me on the couch that you can't see. If needed, I have them quick access that I can grab. What you're going to want to do, turn down the flow. If you have a auto top off unit, make sure you turn that off. Otherwise, you are going to regret that. And then you're going to need one of these. It's a siphon. The one I use actually got from my local PetSmart, Petsco. We'll probably have them as well. Reason I love it is it has a little hand pump that you can basically push to get the pressure going and the flow going down there. The reason why that's better is the old school ones, you actually scoop some water, lift, scoop some water, lift. It's going to work. And then the ones that are just the tube, you actually have to put the pressure and suck it out with your mouth. And I promise you, you don't want to get the salt water in your mouth, especially if you have corals. And what you want to do is basically, as it's siphoning out, mine is a real slow drain. I have a small siphon. You're slowly pouring it in. Make sure to always stay above where your water pumps are, especially if you have a sump or if you're using a hang on the back. Make sure it stays above the input for your hang on the back filter. Otherwise, you're going to have some issues there. It's going to potentially burn up the pump. Won't do it immediately, but just not good for it in the long run, guys. So basically, just monitor it. As you fill up, make sure you stop the water on the filling up jug at the same position on the jug that you had water, so match it at 5 gallons exactly. That way you don't have to worry about any kind of top off issues or anything afterwards. So take your time if you're new at it. Try not to spill it everywhere. Make sure you're not pouring near your electrical outlets. If you are, make sure you cover them up just in case if it splatters a little bit. And there you have it, guys. That's all you really need to know to get your reef going. How to mix salt water. Like I said, we'll be doing a video on how to use a refractometer. Cannot even say that word properly. I apologize for that. How to get that salinity basically perfectly at that 1.026. And before I go, guys, just wanted to throw one last thing. I know this is probably going to drop down in the comments at least once or a few times. How much water do you need to change? Me, myself, I do a weekly water change very, very strictly. And at minimum, I do 10%. 10% of my system is right about 10 gallons. I aim for more 15, sometimes even 20 gallons if I really think my system needs it. So at minimum, 10% weekly, guys. At maximum, I don't really think you need to go past 20% unless something's going on dramatically in your tank. But yeah, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and Danny's out. Later, YouTube.